A very good evening to all the attendees present here. McGraw-Hill welcomes you to a webinar on recent litigation in GST from CA Shaifaly Girdharwal. She says a lot of litigation changing the face of GST. It is almost impossible to reply to the notices unless you're aware of the latest litigation in GST. In this webinar, she will cover the latest trends and also the rulings by various high courts and Supreme Courts. About the speaker, let's just say you must be knowing about this very famous YouTube channel, Consultees. I'm sure you must be aware. So if not, then please go to the YouTube channel and go to YouTube and visit her channel. www.consultease.com is her website. She's the co-founder of this very amazing website. She has her YouTube channel for GST with almost 2.5 lakh subscribers, and she has written many articles and created almost 400 videos on various topics in GST. So she's here today to have a discussion with all of you. Let's welcome her. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much for your warm wishes and a brief introduction from me. So I can see so many familiar faces in the audience, and it's really nice to me to see all of you here, and you spare your time to listen to what's happening into GST. So it's almost 3 years of GST. We spent it together. We spent it exploring the new things. We spent it, analyzing the existing provisions. So some of the days were actually very hard. Some of the days were completely wastage of time. Like later on, it just come to our notice that okay, that complete analysis was a complete wastage of time. But the most crucial and most important thing in GST is that there are so many warm issues, so many uncompleted, and so many, I will say, the gray areas which are important from the corporate point of view, from the various industries point of view, because they want a certain answer, the certainty into the provisions concerned to the GST. And as we all understand that in last 3 years, there is no appeal mechanism. So now it is developed since say I think 4 or 5 months maybe, and tribunals are still not there. So entire litigation was just because of this fact, because there was no proper appeal mechanism available for the taxpayers basically. But this very fact has developed a very I was a very beautiful area into GST, because we can analyze the various provision, we can define the various things. We have so many precedents with ourselves during the period of 3 years only. When GST was just introduced, we were used to say that, oh, we don't have any legal precedents, like how we will be able to interpret the various provisions, how we will be able to handle the different scenarios. But during this period of 3 years only, we have so many of them. So there are so many gray areas, there are so many areas where the developments are under construction. So for example, like in case of safari retreats, the Odisha High Court said that okay, the input tax credit for the construction of immovable property will be available. But there is one very crucial question, that when something is decided in some high court, or some maybe say in the Supreme Court, what should be my course of action? How I am supposed to react it? How I am supposed to translate that particular legal proceeding or legal decision into my business, or how I'm supposed to use it for the consulting of my clients, and what is its actual impact. So say if somebody is winning a case, so you can see the recent case in VKC Footwear, which is very historical, which said that in case of refund of inverted rated supply, the refund of input services will also be included. So it took around 3 years to get this first decision. But still the question is that whether all of the taxpayers located at the various locations in India, can they just simply translate this case into their favor, and they can say that okay, now because the Gujarat High Court has decided that the refund in this particular case is available, so we can also start claiming the refund, and will the department allow that refund? There's a big question. You can see there are so many transitional credit cases, because the form was open for a brief period and then it was closed. So there was a long litigation over the transitional credit, whether it is available, whether it is still available. Can I fill my form, or can I fill my form after that period of 90 days? Even I never faced any technical glitch. So there are judgments, but the problem is as soon as we get a judgment, CBIC have their own thought process. They have their own decisions. They have their own outcomes of everything. And as soon as there is something controversial, they just change the law retrospectively. Although this retrospective change of law has its limits, and it is like again a point of litigation. It can again be a point of dispute, like whether the litigator has the right, whether the administration can always do this, that when you lose a case at some front, you just go and change the law altogether, you just change the language of law. And if it is done from the retrospective effect, what will be my role, what will be my responsibility, what will be the outcome, what will be the impact of that particular change on a normal taxpayer, like how should I react to it? I think this is the most crucial question at this point of time, apart from the say the compliance issues, the legal issues, the the GST and portal issues. The most important thing at this point of time is how we should handle these important issues which are arising due to litigation. Shall we rely on that litigation, or shall we continue it like in as it is form? But if like it's hard to follow any of them because all of the paths have their own repercussions, there are future uncertainties. So if I start follow one particular case decision and later on it is decided in the Supreme Court that okay, this was not the correct decision, and it is it's not upheld in a senior level of the litigation, like what will be the outcome, what will be its repercussion on me if I rely on it? If I don't rely on it, then if in the future it is upheld by a bigger court, say Supreme Court, then what I should do? Because I have already lost that period of time, or say that right to claim that benefit. So it's very very important for us to you know take care of these issues. I think some people are facing some problem in audio and video. So technical team is here to take care of that. I hope if I am completely audible and visible to you, please you can ascertain that in the chat so that I will chat so that I will also be able to see that okay, I'm perfectly visible to everyone. So I will say this is very very important area because as a consultant, it's very important for us to locate our position, fix our position. See, anybody can read the law, anybody can read those judgments, but what should be our course of action after a particular judgment? That is very very important thing. So first of all, we will start from some controversial areas, like the areas which are litigative in the GST. Litigation is already there, and there are some of the areas where a future litigation is going to happen. You can see Rule 36, Rule 36.4. It's at many platforms. It is being discussed. It's criticized. It is said that it is ultra virus of this CGST Act. But like, what will be the final outcome? Because at this point of time, if somebody as a corporate or as a taxpayer approaches me or you or any one of us, like what should we suggest them? So here now these were all the questions, but now I would like to start with some solutions for you. I will say as a consultant, we really need to understand what should be our stand, and our stand will depend on the position. If I am going to consult someone at the very beginning of something, so a transaction hasn't taken the place, it is just the beginning of that, and client has approached me before entering into a transaction, at that point of time my advice may be different. If somebody has approached after they received the notice, so now we are supposed to go for a appeal, right? So in that particular case, our approach should be different because now the notice is already there. The transaction is recording, it's reporting in form of the returns is already done. So now when we have the notice in our hand, obviously our response may be different because now we will be in a protective mode, we will be in a defensive mode, right? Then there can be a third scenario when we are the auditor of a particular person. So now at the time of conducting the audit, maybe my stand is completely different because at this point of time I'm not supposed to consult them what should be the right and what should be the wrong. At this point of time, my duty is to find out where there is a lack of compliance in any provision of the act, and what could be its future say the cash burn or the future liability or future risk, inherent future risk into that particular, because of that particular transaction. So my position changes in all of these conditions. When I'm a consultant, I will have to think from the client's perspective. I will have to think about his protection. I will have to, form some compliance, some SOPs, and some measures to protect them, so that they can be, comfortable, so that they can be out of risk for the future. Now, when the transaction is already done and a notice is in my hand, then my role will be completely different, because at that point of time, I will be searching for the, the case laws, the remedies, the interpretational of the law provisions. So my focus will be completely on the finding out the, some data, some literature, some content, so that I can support the stand of my client or my say the customer. So as an auditor, I don't need to do any of them. As an auditor, I just need to understand the various provisions of law. I just need to understand like how they should be translated practically. And here, a deep knowledge of that particular industry will also be required, because knowing the provision of law is a completely different thing. But then translating it into a particular industry, sometimes it's completely different, because every industry has its own set of structure, its own set of transactions, its own set of related parties, and structuring between those various related parties. So we just need to take care of all of these facts. So while we are reading the decisions of case law, it can be quite helpful for us to understand the different industries also. So if like we should be having the different say the stand at this point of time. Like somebody is just a fresher, or someone may be an experience with an experience of say 5 to 10 years, or somebody may be like too much experienced. So for all of them, reading the case law is very important, and it's very important to because it give you a new perspective to think about the provisions of law we are already reading. Because if you're just reading the law and interpreting it's in your own particular way, like you may be wrong at so many points. So now we will start with some of the recent litigation. Recent, I will say 3 years. The entire 3 year time is recent. Like for the law and litigation, 3 years very small period of time. So some of the litigative issues, some of the complex issues which still exists in the GST. So the first thing is provisions related to the intermediary under section 13(8). This is 13(8) of IGST Act and not CGST Act, because generally when we refer to any section, we refer it to CGST Act, but it is particularly for the IGST Act. Read this section 213. What activities can be covered in intermediary and its implication. See, intermediary provisions were there in service tax also. Now the problem is its scope is increasing day by day. And how its scope is increasing? If you will see the litigative trends, all of the advanced ruling, all of the cases in High Court related to GST, like in most of the cases, if it is a question of intermediary, like you will find that in most of the cases, it will be against the taxpayer. So the thought process of department is expanding its wings to include everything into an intermediary. First of all, we need to understand what is the exact meaning of this word, and we also need to differentiate this particular word, the intermediary, from the word agent. So in GST, these two important words are there, these two important terms. The first is intermediary and agent. They are different from each other, but we really need to understand what is the difference between them. So why this intermediary thing is important, and when I'm saying that okay, its scope is increasing and more transactions and more people are getting into the scope of intermediary, what is the impact if somebody is an intermediary? Its impact will be when there is an export of some services. So if it's a domestic transaction, it is not going to impact at large, because it's still taxable. But in case of exports, because for making an export of service, my place of supply should be outside India, and if it is an intermediary service, so the provision says that my place of supply will be dragged from outside India to inside India, and it will translate, it will say the change a export transaction into a domestic transaction. So the entire transaction is completely same. Just because it is being tagged as an intermediary, you will be liable to make payment of tax on it, and you will not be eligible for any export benefits. So I have an export benefit because I export the services or goods, and then then I claim a refund. But in this particular case, because my place of supply is in India, it will be out from the definition of export, and I will be deprived of all of the benefits which are being provided to the exporters. So section 13 it says it also has some other subsections, but I have deleted them so that we can just focus on this B part. The place of supply of the following services shall be the location of supplier of services. So the place of supply will be the location of supplier of services. For example, I am located in India and I am providing some services to a person located in Germany. Now, as per the general provision of place of supply under section 30, that is for international transactions, the place of supply should be Germany, because it says that the location of recipient of service is generally the uh, place of supply. But because of this exception, if it is an intermediary transaction, now the place of supply for that particular service will be in India only. So now, because it is in India, what will happen? It will be out from the definition of exports. Now let us try to understand what is the meaning of intermediary. Like, why government will say that for this particular transaction, your place of supply is not outside India, but your place of supply is in India. And I would like to mention one more thing, that this particular provision is under litigation, and there is a thought process that it is ultra virus the rights of government. They cannot increase the territory of India to outside India just by making a change in the place of supply provision. So if a transaction is laying say outside India in Germany, and I just include it into the intermediary, and I say that okay, now this is not outside India but it is into India, so now it is taxable. So it will be quite convenient for them to gradually shift all of the services to India. So I will say that at various level of the litigation it is being challenged, and there is a thought process that some people feel, and I mean some of you maybe agree with this thought process. So some of the experts feel that this is an ultra virus provision, so government have no right to expand the definition of this term intermediary to include the international transaction and convert them into a domestic transactions just to make them deprived of some export benefits. So the definition of intermediary is, it means a broker, an agent, or any other person by whatever name called, who arranges or facilitates the supply of goods or services or both, or securities. Now this is very interesting fact. If you will remember the definition of goods or services, so in GST both of them are out from the definition of securities, are out from the both of the definition. They are neither service nor goods. But to ascertain the services of intermediary, securities are also included. So an exception is made in this context. So they said that by what a name called, who arranges or facilitate, who arrange or facilitate. What is facilitating? The supply of goods or services or both, or securities between two or more person, but does not include a person who supplies such goods or services or both or securities on his own. So you are making a supply of goods or services. We need to take care of this thing. Let us read it again. Be careful. Who arranges or facilitates the supply of goods or services? So he is facilitating. It means the nature of his services will be services only. So his transaction cannot be a transaction of goods, but the facilitation may be for the supply of goods or for the supply of services. So if I am helping you in making a supply of goods, I can be an intermediary, right? If I am helping you to make a supply of services, I can be an intermediary. At some point of time, I will say for an international transaction of service, if you are making some other supply in India, the party who is sitting outside India, if they are making some other supply to India, and I'm just helping them or I'm supporting them to complete that particular supply. So in some of the cases, even if I'm converting the currency for a person sitting outside India, even that is being included in an intermediate transaction. They said because they will not be able to complete their supply if you will not translate the currency for them. In some point of time, they included if I am selling something on behalf of that person, if I'm helping them to create the sales lead or generate the sales lead. Like in all of these cases, they cover it into the intermediary services. Now, there are so many cases, I will say there are so many industries, first of all, who do these kind of supply, who have entered into these kind of contracts. So I can give you n number of examples, numerous examples. So say if there is a company located outside India, say in Italy, and they are selling some kind of heavy machinery to the people, to the clients located in India, and for that purpose, I have appointed one company in India and they're providing the after sale services. So, say I have sold this particular machinery with a warranty of 1 year, and then there is a company in India. What they're doing, they're not selling or they're not doing anything. They're just, giving that AMC for the period of 1 year, replacing the part during the period of warranty. They're just doing these kind of tasks. So, whether it is an intermediary or not, I will say there is very thin line between these two things. When I have an independent service to the client, and when I am just contributing or helping in the services which are already provided by the third party. So this is one of the example. In this particular case, I will say it will fall under the definition of intermediary. Second example, if you can recall the Clientha research, there was a company called Clientha Research. I also covered that particular case in my video, one of my video. In Clientha Research also, they were doing the medical research, so medical tests on the people who are located in India. So I hired a company. So say in some of the countries, the testing of humans is not allowed, right? So what those companies did, they hired a company in India. They sent the medicine and they said that okay, you just need to test this medicine to this type of group. So they will tell you the type and age of group on which they actually want to get it tested. So they are just tested, their medicines were tested on those people. So it was held by the advanced ruling authority that in this particular case the service is provided by the Indian companies intermediary. So this is another example. Now let me take the another example, the third example. Now let us say I have some plant and machinery in India and I want to conduct a research. So in that research, what you're required to do, you're required to go to that plant and machinery and make them some kind of run some kind of softwares or use some kind of chemicals, and then you just need to give me the result of your research or the result of your testing. So again, in this particular case, they said that it will fall under the intermediary. Sigoma International, that was the another case. In that particular case, what they were doing, they were just clicking the pictures for their clients. So they developed the client, that is the party sitting outside India. They developed a software and they had a website. On that particular website, the people were uploading the pics of their diamonds, and then they will show those pics and they will be making the sales for them. So what they did, they wanted to ascertain that the quality of picture is same for all of the clients. So they hired an Indian company and they said that for our Indian clients, you will be responsible to click the pictures of those particular diamonds. So again, it was held that it is also an intermediary services, although some other points were also explained in this AR, but they were not the question asked. They were just elaborately covered by the advanced ruling authority. So there are multiple decisions. So I think I will say for every consultant this can be very important area, because at this point of time department is issuing bulk notices to all of the companies who have entered any kind of contract with their foreign counterparty, because they understand that in most of the cases it's very easy to get them fallen into this intermediary services. So deep study of those cases can be quite helpful for all of you. I have mentioned some of the cases, and some of the cases I just verbally told you which are not covered into this. So there is five-star shipping, global beach education. You must be aware of this. This was very famous advanced ruling, the global beach education services. Mrs. Vishakar Prashant Bhave, then Subway Travel Network India. This is also important one, and We Serve Global. That was a back office services. So all of these services were covered under the intermediary. So its scope is increasing, and as its scope is increasing, your scope is also increasing. So you can definitely would love to dig down deep into these kind of things. So this is a small slide which I made to make you understand the global reach education AR. So what they were doing in that particular case, They were foreign universities, and they run a website. On that particular website, they hosted the courses. Hosted means they just put the banners and the entire information of the courses which were conducted by the foreign university. The student will be coming to this website. They will be asking some queries like what are the charges and like what will be exactly covered. So sometimes you have so many questions when you go to take up some course or something. So what they did, they answered those questions and then they converted a sales lead for this particular university. But the course or degree, it's material, uh, the material for that particular degree or course, the technical support, everything was provided by the university itself. So it never give any support in the say the actual supply of things. So the actual supply was for the supply of education, supply of that particular course. So they never supported in the supply of course. But what they were doing, they were generating the sales lead, they were nurturing those sales lead, and after the conversion, they were just giving those sales lead to this university, and this university was paying them commission, a fixed commission for the leads. So in this particular case also, it was held that it is an intermediary service. So I will say that every case you will be analyzing, they will say it's an intermediary services, but most of these scenarios are litigative, and I will again tell you that many experts have raised their concerns over that, because if you will include everything into intermediary, then the concept of export of service, that will completely end, because in most of the cases you are working something for a person sitting outside India, and if it is a part of further supply, like most of the services we take, it automatically becomes a part of our supply. So in those particular cases you will always make it taxable in India. So it will definitely be going to make this export of services very hard and very less lucrative for the Indian people. So that is one of those cases. Then the second important and gray area for the GST, it is availability of input tax credit for the promotional items and gift. So we all understand Section 17 puts various blockage of credits for the GST items. So Section 17(5) provide many entries. It says that if something is given as a gift, free of cost, or as a sample, but without charging anything. So it will be you will be liable to reverse this input tax credit. Now the important thing is, I mean, there are 2 or 3 points which I would like to just clarify. When you are actually not charging anything, against a gift, then definitely you are supposed to reverse the credit. But then our mutual understanding and our agreement, they will play a very important role. For example, if I hire an employee and I give him a bonus of say 50,000 rupees on Diwali, right? So, okay, that can be in the form of money. So I'm giving him a say mobile phone that costs like 50,000 rupees. So if I include a clause in his employmentship agreement that on every Diwali you will be provided with a gift up to the tune of 50,000 rupees, and it can be in form of commodity. It will not be in cash. It can be form of any commodity. It can be a mobile phone. It can be a laptop. It can be a say something else, like whatever. And it is not a free gift. It will be called as a bonus, but it is not a free gift, but it is in return of your services to this company. So if that clause is I will say clearly entered into my agreement, then I can be out from this reversal. But I will again say, what happens is sometimes clients just call you and they ask, sir, we are distributing the Diwali gift, so are we eligible for the input tax credit? And we will simply say no. So I would like to tell you that instead of saying no, we just need to dig it down. We just need to, ask them whether you included this particular gift into their agreement, employment agreement. And did you ever mention that this particular gift is not free and it is, in return to your services for the company, what you are doing for our company. So it is part of your CTC. Okay, so that can be one example. Then another thing can be if I'm giving some kind of promotional scheme. So promotional schemes are like they were always being in the say in the thought of the department. They always want to tax those kind of scheme. So now again I need to understand the meaning of free gift. If something is given for a condition, It is not a free gift. So if I say that, okay, let's say we can take an example of insurance brokers, or you can take an example of the people who sell these Tupperware or these kind of goods, the multi-level marketing goods, right? So sometimes they have these kind of schemes that, okay, if you will make a sale of say 1 lakh rupees or 10 lakh or 1 crore, like whatever the amount is, we will give you a free ticket to Bangkok, some package of Bangkok, just to inspire the people so that they can work hard. So maybe you are not working enough hard for the money, but when they will say, okay, we will give you a free trip to Bangkok or like any destination outside India, so they may be more motivated that, okay, I just want to like do this. So for these kind of incentives, because a condition is attached to it, I'm not going to give it to you for free. I will be going to give it to you only when you will fulfill some condition. So it will not be included in the definition of free gift again. Third thing, if there is a promotional scheme, like in case of pharma industry or like in case of FMCG, so two more important, most important sectors who are providing these kind of promotional schemes. So if I say that, okay, if you will buy a toothpaste, I will give you the brush free of cost, or if you're going to buy a mouse, I will give you the some optical cable. If you will buy a computer system from me, a complete computer system, I will give you a wireless charger. So these kind of things, because again a condition is attached to these kind of items, they are not free. They are not free at all. So we need to understand the difference between the free gift and something which has an inherent condition where you need to fulfill some condition to get something. It's not free. It is a part of consideration. It is a part of your remuneration or consideration you are receiving. So these are the things we need to understand. Like when someone asks me for a consulting, or when someone is asking about this, that whether I have given this particular three free of cost, so I'm not charging for say for this particular phone. So whether I need to reverse the credit or not. So I'm just suggesting to enter into the agreement of it. Just read its agreement and read the entire transaction. Try to understand the purpose of entire transaction. But if something is actually given completely free of cost, then definitely you need to reverse input tax credit for it. Okay, I also mentioned the COVID, like how COVID is going to make any change in my input tax credit. It's important. Why it's important? If you will see section 75B, it lists some items and it says you will never be going to credit of these items unless and until they are the part of some composite or mixed supply you're making. So if you're making some outward supply and it was a part of that outward supply. So for example, I will not get the input tax credit of catering, but if I am also a caterer and I use the catering services to cater further to give my outward services. It was a part of that service. Then you will be going to get the input tax credit of that particular item. Is like food item, beauty items, beauty things, the insurance, rent cab services. So there is a long list of these items. Apart from that, that particular provision also include a clause which says if it is mandated by any law for the time being in force, even in that case, you will be eligible for the input tax credit. So when the lockdown was there and Corona was there, it's still there. Corona is still there, but lockdown, okay, some of the places lockdown is still there. So due to the Corona and lockdown, the Disaster Management Act was changed and ordinance was passed. That ordinance, said that you will have to provide some extra benefit to your employees at their workplace. So they just said that, okay, you can open your premises, but to open your premises you will have to provide like some kind of life insurance or say medical insurance to your employees, or you will have to provide the some mask, sanitization, those kind of items are mandatory. So I would like to mention that on those particular items which you are providing because they are mandated by the government, the input tax credit will be available. But if you are providing some items but they are not mandated by the government, then no input tax credit will be available. So what would be happening, like if we are following the past practice, we will be just ignoring the input tax credit of all of those items, but now some of those items may be available for input tax credit. So we just need to rescan and revisit the transactions of our clientele. Case study number 3. It is coverage of ocean freight in the reverse charge under GST. So all of the exporters, importers, or the importers should be directly concerned with this matter. And at the various forums when I discuss it, there are so many consultants who are in dilemma and who says that, like, okay, in case of Mohit Minerals, the High Court said that it is ultra virus, it's unconstitutional. But what should be my course of action? Because department is sending me the notice and department is asking me that okay, you are liable to pay this tax in reverse charge, and in some of the cases the amount may be huge, right? Because initially so many taxpayers were not aware that there is any tax on this ocean freight, and I don't know the fate of this particular case and this particular matter. Like, what will be the final fate of it? So Supreme Court has already provided this stay. So what will happen in the future? Whether the Supreme Court will reverse the judgment or it will be upheld by the judgment. Like, what I am supposed to do? That's a big question, because there can be interest liability, there can be penalty, and if I deposit it, how I will be going to claim its refund? Because it's a precedent that once you have paid some kind of tax, and even if there is a provision change in the provision, or if there is any benefit through the litigation, generally department never give you a refund, and it's very difficult to claim any refund. So like, I am at loss from both of the position. If I don't pay it, then there can be the future consequences, and if I actually pay it, it will be very hard to take the refund in the future. So I will also discuss that. First, I would like to explain this a little. What is this ocean freight and why the people says, the taxpayers, the consultant and the high court itself said that it is ultra virus. So ocean freight is covered under RCM via entry number 10 of notification number 10 by 2017 IGST rate. So there is reverse charge notification for CGST and there is reverse charge notification for IGST as well. So although all of the other entries are almost same in both of the notification, and generally we don't even read the IGST notification, we just read the CGST, because we always assume that IGST will be the replica of CGST only. But in this particular case, this is additional entry. This entry is not there in the CGST Act notification. It says the service is supplied by a person located in non-taxable territory by way of transportation of goods by a vessel from a person outside India up to the customs stations of clearance in India. So what it exactly covering? Some of you may already understand it if you have already dealt with such kind of client, but some of you may not be able to understand it. So I have given it a pictorial presentation. You will be able to understand what I am trying to say and what this provision is actually trying to say through this slide. What is trying to say that I will be telling you. This is an importer and he's not wearing the mask. That's funny. So this is an importer located in India and this is the foreign party, and he said that okay, you just need to dispatch me this much of goods on CIF basis, right? So this foreign party, what they did, he hired a foreign transporter. He hired this foreign transporter. So this area is in India and this area is outside India. So all of these people, after this border line, everything in this side is located outside India and everything this side is located in India. So he ordered something to this person and he said, okay, you are just supposed to deliver it to my port and I will take the delivery from the port. Okay. So what this party did, he hired someone from his country. So we can assume this is, say, Italy. So this person in Italy hired this person located in Italy, and he take the services of transportation of goods from this person. And what this person did, he transported these goods, this container, from Italy to Indian port, not to his location, only to Indian port. So what he should have done? He should have just loaded the goods to the ship and ship automatically came to India. So goods are also carried to India. Now, what this provision is saying? This provision is saying that this particular person, this importer, is liable to pay the tax in RCM on the amount of freight paid by this party to this party. Now we need to understand whether this transaction is under the territory of India. If the government of India have the right to tax a transaction which is taking place completely outside India, so service recipient is outside India and the service provider is also outside India. So whether it is possible, that's very important question. If you can see, you will feel that it is completely outside India. How Indian government can charge the tax on this particular transaction? Also, who is made liable to pay tax on this particular transaction? This person. That is the importer. This person is liable to pay tax on this particular transaction, right? So now the one question arises: it is the transaction between these two people. How this person will be aware, like how much he has charged from this person, and why he will tell him? Why he will be going to tell him like how much this person has charged? He will be, you know, taking the consideration for this entire container, including the transportation. So, see, when you buy something inclusive of transportation, do you ever ask them that like how much transportation you have paid? You will say like you don't mind it because you have bought it with transportation. So what they did, they added one corrigendum, and in that corrigendum, they said that okay, the entire amount of this transaction plus 10% of it. So you can take 10% of this transaction, and it will be deemed as the value of this transaction. Now the question arises: Section 9(3) and for that matter Section 5(3) for IGST Act, it gives a power to government that they can notify a recipient that he will be liable to pay tax on the services or goods he has received. Now the most important question is this person is the recipient of service or he is the recipient of service? Like who has received the services of transportation of goods, whether this person has received those services or this person has received those services. So this person has received those services, how you can tag this person to pay tax in RCM on that particular transaction? So that was the question of Mohit Minerals, and in the advance ruling, that particular say that particular thing was rejected by the advanced ruling authority, and they said like they gave a very casual answer. They said that because it is covered in the notification, so he is liable to pay tax in RCM. But the High Court considered it, and High Court said that it is definitely ultra virus. It is ultra vires the rights of Indian government or CBIC to charge the tax on a transaction which is not taking place in the territory of India, because Indian Taxation Act can only be applicable to the territory of India only. But still, the problem is that the department is asking, they send notices in case you are not paying the tax in reverse charge. So what we are supposed to do, what should be our stand? First thing, we also need to understand, when something is decided in a particular court, what is my right? Can I always quote that judgment, and can I always get the relief on the basis of that judgment? What is the jurisdiction of a particular judgment? That is also very important point. Like many times we just forget it. Many times we just rejoice that okay, this particular court has given a favorable judgment to us. But then we need to understand what is the jurisdiction, what is the applicability of that judgment. So I will in very brief be explaining that particular thing. When there is a judgment of a state court, that judgment is applicable to that particular state. In other states, if there is no other judgment which is against that particular judgment, so say if there is a judgment of Gujarat High Court which says that okay, the ocean freight RCM is ultra virus, but then there is another judgment of Delhi High Court which stays on those kind of petition, or which says no, it is not ultra virus, it is perfect. I mean, it is good to go. Now, a person sitting in Delhi, he cannot take a plea that okay, in Gujarat High Court there is a judgment that says it is ultra virus. So, if there is no judgment of Delhi, then a person sitting in Delhi can use that Gujarat High Court judgment. But if there is a contrary judgment in the state where you are sitting, you cannot take the benefit of that particular judgment. So at this point of time, you also need to check in your particular state high courts, like what is their take on this particular issue before going into any final course of action for your customers or clients. So if there is no such judgment in your area, you can quote this judgment and you can say because it is ultra virus, I'm not liable to pay this particular liability, I'm not going to pay it. What will happen? They will send you a notice, they will send a demand notice, and again against the demand notice you can go to a appeal. So in the appeal you may get a relief. If you are not getting a relief in appeal, you can go to tribunal. Tribunal is not set up at this point of time, so you can try to approach some high court. Then the case study 4, inclusion of input services for calculation of refund of input tax credit for inverted rated refund. One of the most controversial area when I am making a supply which is inverted rated supply. What is an inverted rated supply? Inverted rated supply means where the tax rate on input is less than the tax rate on output. Sorry, it's reverse. The tax rate on input is higher than the tax rate on output. So what will happen? Like how I try to remember it. Like when there will be the accumulation of input tax credit, when the tax rate on purchase is higher, there will be accumulation of input tax credit. So under the law, the refund of input tax credit was allowed, but when they made the rule for this particular section, what they did under Rule 89.5, they give a formula, and that formula was changed retrospectively. I will also discuss that it was changed retrospectively from 1st July 2017 later on. So they provided a formula where they removed the input tax of input services and goods. They just said that meaning of net input tax credit is the input tax credit of inputs only. So that was the reason of litigation. I will say in the e-commerce and handloom sector, there was the big and huge amount which was tucked because of this provision. So it is also striped by the High Court, Honorable Gujarat High Court. I will say Gujarat High Court is very fast and like they're performing very well in giving the I will say controversial decisions. But that was a big relief for the taxpayers. So I will just briefly tell you what is under Section 54.3, and so that you can also have a thought process that what should be the actual outcome of this particular case. It says subject to the provisions of subsection 10, a registered person may claim refund of any unutilized input tax credit at the end of any tax period. It says you can claim the refund of any unutilized input tax credit, but please don't be happy. Its proviso provide the exception. It says that input tax credit refund is allowed only in two particular cases. So first they said that you will be eligible to claim the refund of any input tax credit, and then they provided the exception, and exception said that only two cases will be covered for the refund. So you are not eligible to claim the refund of input tax credit for any other case. So what are those cases? Zero rated supply. Okay, we are not discussing it. Where the credit has accumulated on account of rate of tax on inputs being higher than the rate of tax on output supply, other than nil rated supply or fully exempted supply. Now we need to add on one thing. Most of the people or the government official who rejected the refund of input services, they placed their emphasis on this word. They said it is written that rate of tax on inputs being higher. So they said that we are using the word inputs in act itself. So rule is not overriding the act, it is commensurating the act. But the charging section said that you are eligible to claim refund of entire input tax credit when. So the proviso is only providing the scenarios when you are eligible to claim the refund of input tax credit. It is not providing you what will be refunded. It is just providing you when it will be refunded. So what will be refunded? It is unutilized input tax credit that can be refunded. And when it will be refunded? When there is a zero rated supply and when there is an inverted rated supply. So from that perspective, like that's my personal view, and it may not be matching with some of you. But in that case, the refund of input services should also be included. In fact, even of capital goods may also be included. So it was under litigation for a long time. I also mentioned the Rule 89.5. So that was the formula of Rule 89.5. Here is the definition of net ITC. There they use the word inputs only. Although earlier it was not the same, this provision was amended by notification number 26 by 2018 by retrospective effect. Right? So that's a breather that in BKC Footstep India Private Limited versus Union of India and others, the High Court said that yes, you are eligible for the input tax credit for input services also. And there were so many, actually BKC Footstep is the one case where this verdict was given. But so many cases, I will say around 15 to 20 cases were clubbed. They were grouped at one place because all of those were having the uh, same issue basically. So they were just clubbed at one place, and the decision was given in UKC footsteps. And many famous Indian lawyers appeared for this particular case. Mr. Sridharan was there, Mr. Avinash Puttara was there. So there were so many famous advocates appeared for this particular case. Case study 5. Does the authorities have power to amend the provisions of a repealed act? I don't know, like, it will be a little difficult for some of you to understand because this is a little technical thing and not, I mean, very frequent in day-to-day routine life. Actually, this particular law is of Reliance Industries Limited. Yes, you heard it right. It belongs to the Reliance Industries Limited, the Mukesh Ambani company. So, in this particular case, there was a section inserted in the VAT Act of Gujarat GST, Gujarat VAT Act, which is already repealed by the GST. Now, the question is whether the government can make a retrospective change in the provision of an act which is repealed by some act. If anybody of you is interested in reading, if you want to fetch some time to read, I will recommend all of you. If some of you are even students or the newcomers, or I will say even experienced, like this law, this case law, the Supreme Court of in this case of Reliance Industries Limited, it is a must read for all of you. Just you can just note it down and please read this case. It actually, discussed so many things. The 101st Constitutional Amendment Act, its purpose, its various articles inserted through that particular Constitutional Amendment Act. Then it also discussed the applicability of General Clauses Act on the interpretation of the clauses of Constitution of India. It also discussed the meaning of repeal and saving. It also discussed the rule of estoppel, like once you do something, can you change it later on? So there were so many important things which were discussed at length in this particular case law. So I will recommend all of you to read this. It was around 75 pages only, not that much long. So what it said section 84A of Gujarat VAT Act was ultra virus. It was inserted, and what it did, it retrospectively changed the time limit, the limitation for the proceedings under the Gujarat VAT Act after the GST is already introduced. So GST Act itself provides for the transition provision, under the transition provision, that if some demand is required to be raised under the previous law, it can be raised through GST. But what they did, they just changed the provision of the VAT Act, which was already repealed, and they inserted this particular section into that act. So which was struck off by the government, by the Honorable Supreme Court. And this is the final outcome of this case. So they said it is violative of Article 14 and 19(1)(g), that is right to business and right to equality. Now, the next case study is the GST implication on branch transfer and cross charge. There are so many cases for this particular issue also. So branch in one state, and this is the branch in other state, and they are doing so many business. There are some areas in this particular case, and they may be applicable to all of the industry and all of the entities having the different branches or distinct person into various states. So what are the some important or common points, I will say? The common resources, that happens so many times that the different branches are using some common resources. So when they are using that common resource, it is very important to allocate the cost and charges of that particular resource to all of them. Otherwise, in the future, the department may ask you. They may send you a notice and say that okay, this is a particular supply and you are liable to pay tax on this particular supply. So whenever you are using common resources, please always raise an invoice, always make a rational allocation of those particular expenses and charge your branches for it. Resources of one branch used for another branch, that is also very common thing. So if there is a marketing branch and there is a production branch, so production branch may be using the resources of marketing branch, or marketing branch may be using the resources of production branch. So even in that case, you are supposed to raise an invoice, cross charge each other, raise an invoice. The good thing is that the valuation rules provide that when you are raising an invoice, the value of invoice itself will be taken as value. So I will say the most convenient way to express these kind of transaction is to raise a proper invoice. Then services of director or by the senior management. So directors may be providing the services to all of the branches. So their services, their charges should also be located. And value of such services, it's easy, as I already told you. If you are raising an invoice, the invoice value can be taken as value. And reversal of ITC for non-payment of consideration. So in this particular case, we can consider that because sometimes the branches are just paying the tax, but they are actually not liable to charge the consideration. They don't want to charge consideration from their branch, but for the sake of GST provision, for the sake of Schedule 1 entry number 1, they are just charging to their branches. So in that particular case, the provision of section 16(4) should not be applicable. The ITC reversal for 180 days payment shall not be applicable in this case. GST implication on director's remuneration vis-a-vis its coverage under reverse charge. Claycraft AR, all of you should be, remember this particular name, the Claycraft Enterprises. In this particular case, it was a very interesting case because advanced ruling authorities, it's very normal for them to give some kind of decision and without going thoroughly into the matter. So what they did, they just said that okay, the services of directors will also be covered under the supply, and they are also liable for the reverse charge, because as we understand, the services provided by the directors are covered by reverse charge by 13/2017 notification of GST. So, like, it created a lot of dilemma, it created a lot of panic for the taxpayers. Although at that point of time, our stand was that this advanced ruling is not going to hold good in any platform, right? But CBIC was kind enough to notice that issue and notice the anomaly which was created by the advanced ruling authority in this particular case. And just after this advanced ruling, they issued this circular number 140/10/2020. And in this particular circular, they clarified that if a director is getting salary and you are deducting the TDS under section 192, only then it is out from the GST perspective, right? If you are deducting the TDS under section 194J, that is for professional services, then you are also liable for GST and it will also be covered under reverse charge mechanism. So these were the important issues. Because time was only for 1 hour, so I tried to cover them very fast. Now I would like to take some of the questions, and if there are no much questions, then we should be happy. Let me look at the questions. Dr. V. Arokia is saying that I think GST collection need to be diverted to the state development during the COVID period. So jurisdiction is such a huge problem in GST, and what I can see, maybe I'm wrong, and please wish that I'm wrong, but I can see that in future the division between the center and states is going to create a panic for the taxpayers, because so many states has starting to ask the taxpayer to pay the tax directly to the state authorities, because center is not paying their compensation, center is not paying their part of tax which center has collected in the form of IGST. So let us hope for good for the future, because during the corona period also you must have heard that states are asking for their share of tax, but center is not paying it. So I mean, this may definitely create a panic. During this COVID-19 pandemic, there is the question of Ma'am B. Devi. Hello, ma'am. During this COVID-19 pandemic, highest demand for medicine and supplies of medicine, will there be any change in the GST values in medicine? Unfortunately, I can't see that. I can't see any kind of relief from the side of government, because, see, we think that there is a pandemic, so we should be given a relief, and government think because there is a pandemic and because there was a lockdown, and due to that they just lost their revenues dramatically came down from the expectation, although they were already down from their earlier expectation. So for the medicine, I don't think there are going to be any benefit. And if government actually want to give any benefit for the medicine, it will be better if they start distributing the medicines free of cost. They will not be, like to give that benefit to the companies in form of tax deduction. Because I have seen that now, as a policy matter, government is not giving any benefit in terms of tax deduction. If you will see, even after the pandemic, there is no, benefit in income tax slabs. I mean, for this particular year, they could have thought of giving some relief in the income tax slabs. Like for the 1 year, they could have thought it that okay, you will not be liable to pay the income tax up to this limit. like not for always, but maybe for 1 year. But nothing like that has happened, so I'm not that hopeful. Mr. Umesh Nawale, he's saying, Madam, please make a video on section 12.8 of IGST. I briefly tried to cover this section, but definitely I will make a video on it.
Hello.
Hello, ma'am.
I hope I'm audible to everybody. Thank you so much, ma'am, for this wonderful session. We had about 9 different questions. If you have some time, maybe you can take 1 or 2 more. Otherwise, we'll move towards the end of the session.
If there are some questions, I can take
We
them
had
up.
one of the people. Yeah. So, ma'am, one of our viewers from Facebook asked how much GST is beneficial for us. Why was it launched? And some basics you would want to know. If you can maybe give a highlight that why was GST introduced in the first place, and is it
Yeah.
beneficial for us overall?
See, GST is definitely beneficial. Like we can see so many negative points. Like there is problem on GST and portal. We are getting notices from the department, but nonetheless, I will, firmly would like to assert this thing that there are so many good things in GST, but we are fast to forget the good things. See, on the in the earlier excise regime, we were not getting the full input tax credit on capital goods. We were getting it 50-50%, 50% for the 1 year and 50% in the subsequent years. Service providers, they were not being eligible for the credit of input tax credit for the goods. But if you can see, you want to do 4 different businesses, so you may be providing services under one business, you are trading in goods under second business, and you may be a manufacturer under the third business. If you are doing it from the same state, you are eligible for all input tax credit, and you can adjust your entire input tax credit to the sale of any of your businesses, because we are reporting it on consolidated basis in our GST or 3B. So now we are not differentiating whether you're a service provider or whether you are a trader or manufacturer. So I will say it's a big relief. It's a huge relief for all of us. So there are so many good points in GST. That's a different thing because of the some hiccups and hitches, and at the GST and portal we face a lot of problems. And but we shouldn't forget this fact that in so many things, in so many dimensions, GST is a good tax actually.
Okay, ma'am, so 2 follow-up questions on this from 2 different users. One is, if it's beneficial, then what kind of impact does it have on small businesses? And second, was the government well prepared when they introduced GST into India?
Okay, so I will answer the second question first. Government was not prepared. I don't have any confusion or any second thought about this thing. Government was definitely not prepared. Also, they were not aware. I mean, there was a gap in understanding the technical capability of GST and portal. So there should be some people who can understand how the technical things progress. So it's not like that I will force you that you will have to do it now and you will be able to do it. The technical things take some time, and there should always be a testing when you're running a website, when you're creating a portal online. It's very, very, very important to test it properly. So it should have been available to the people for at least 1 month, or I will say 6 months before the implementation of GST itself, so that we could have filed some dummy returns and we could have tested it. And I will say that all of the consultants and the clients, they will be happy to help the government free of cost to test their software, because we have tested the form of GST 9, and we have written long letters and long recommendation and suggestions to the government how they can make it better. The GST 9 form, GST 9C form, the new returns of GST, which are now being scrapped by the government. So I will say definitely they were not prepared. How far the Now, the first question, that how it is beneficial for the small businesses. I will say, as a small business, you can take your registration yourself. So I know that some people in the department may be asking for a visit, and sometimes it may be a little troublesome for you. But still, you can take your registration if you have all the documents ready. It's not that hard. You can take an online registration. Then you can file your returns also. It's not that difficult. So being a consultant, I'm saying this thing. If someone is coming to me and saying that just file my return, if they are very simple, I always offer them that okay, I will guide you and I will suggest you. And if you have a low budget on this thing, you can just file it yourself. So I will say the compliances are easy and you can do it yourself unless the portal have some kind of hiccups and you are somewhere stuck on the GST and portal. So that is the good thing for the small businesses, that you can do your compliances yourself. Yes, please.
Great. So great, ma'am. That gets us to the end of our session. Do you have any parting words for our audience before we close?
So I would like to thank the Macro Hill, and I would like to thank all of you to spare your time from the busy schedule of a weekday and attend this webinar. I'm very thankful from the core of my heart, and I would like to wish all of you good luck for your future. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us on this session today. I think the attendees' comments also are saying that it was a superb session, and we would really like to host you someday soon again. Thanks to all the wonderful attendees for great participation. The session recording and including the recording format on your registered email ID. In case you don't receive it soon, you can write back to us at support.india@nheducation.com. We will try and share a feedback form as well with you, so that in case you have some good feedback, some bad feedback that you need us to improve on, we'll take your insights and try to get it done by next time. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining in. Have a great day ahead. Thank you.